Hey, so we're going to talk about Star Wars Rebels Season 3 finale, 0 Hour. So careful of spoilers in case you haven't seen it yet or you're not caught up on Star Wars Rebels. Now with that out of the way, let's go. Wow. So a two-part episode, hour-long episode. I love to see that. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to talk about basically all the noteworthy scenes, everything that was a surprise, everything that was expected that we didn't get, and there were also a lot of really beautiful scenes in this episode. So here we go. First thing of note, basically Thrawn already knows about Kallus. We've seen that already. But Kallus is a little smarter than we give him credit for. He's still able to try to get a secret out to the rebels. Thrawn interrupts him and then they fight, and it's actually a pretty good fight. Kallus is no slouch, but Thrawn has backup, and so as a result, Thrawn wins. They put Kallus in custody, but it was a pretty nice little fight scene. It was pretty satisfying that they're both holding their own, and that's good. Meanwhile, at the Rebel base, Dodonna's fleet shows up, so we get to see Dodonna. And it's one thing I thought it was pretty interesting is that he's already got the Dornian gunships, and we've seen those in Rebels, and we've seen those in we've seen those in Rogue One, and we've seen them in the trailer for Rebels. And I was wondering if they were going to do a backstory on where they get these gunships, but they just have them. So that's a story for another day, I suppose. One thing that's interesting though is that it's pointed out that Thrawn thinks this is the full Rebel fleet, so it shows that he's not quite as smart. I mean, he's brilliant. The Rebels aren't stupid, and they've stayed hidden enough that he doesn't know the full strength of the Rebel fleet. So, even though this is this ends up being a crippling loss for them, they don't they're not losing everything. So Thrawn does show up at the Rebel base, and he's got interdictors with him, and that's so good. That's so good. And the thing is, at first you don't even see them because they're behind the fleet, and it's not until a Nebulon tries to jump into into hyperspace and then gets thrown out that you actually you realize, oh, they're there, and they're awesome. And I'm glad that there's more than one. I'm glad that the Empire is, they're showing how they work, and it kind of goes a long way towards justifying how the end battle of Return of the Jedi, keep them from escaping, and how that whole thing worked. And so it's very subtly, explaining bigger parts of the Star Wars universe to people who didn't already know. So it's nice to see that referenced and see that in action. So the Rebels get ready to return to the planet. Sato makes a huge beast mode move and is able to actually create an opening for Ezra to escape, and he rams an interdictor and he slices this thing in half. It is probably the high point of the episode, maybe the high point, one of the high points of the entire season. It's beautifully done, and it had my jaw on the floor. Sato goes out like a champion to give the rebellion hope. It is not even a winning move, and it gives just that. We also see the end to Constantine, who, this scene is so powerful because Thrawn would have totally won, would have had his perfect victory, but one of the things he didn't anticipate is Constantine blatantly disobeying orders and breaking formation. And Sato was counting on that. So this shows Thrawn's overconfidence slightly, because really your people should follow their orders. But it also shows Sato's brilliance and Constantine's greed and foolishness. So Constantine wants to get a kill. He doesn't want to stay in the rear. Sato takes advantage of that and rams him. And, Sato baited him into doing it. And it's just, oh, wow. And so it gives Ezra the opening he needs. He escapes in the gauntlet, and he goes after to search for other help. The idea is he was going to try to find somebody. He asks Mon Mothma, and she's like, heck no. We're not going up against Thrawn. We only have a little bit more ships. We have more ships, but we're not going to just put all of our eggs in one basket in this one battle. That's exactly what they would want us to do, so that they could take out everything we have. She said we have to cut our losses here, and hopefully they'll take prisoners. But so then Ezra has to go see and find Sabine, and which brings us into the second half of this episode. The rebels have returned to the planet in hopes that they can just hold out long enough for reinforcements to show up or somebody to help them out. They've already lost a lot of ships. It was painful seeing all those Nebulons go down in flames, but Dodonna survived. All your principal characters have survived up to this point, and and you get these orbital bombardment, and it's just gorgeous over the shield. It's like a fireworks show, and it's both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Meanwhile, Kanan has been, enraging the Bendu. He basically went to go try to get help from the Bendu, but instead of just asking him for help, he asks him for help. Bendu says no. Kanan's like, "Are you a coward? They're going to destroy your planet." And he basically he antagonizes the Bendu up into a frenzy, and then has to hightail it out of there because the Bendu gets mad, and he's mad at Kanan and the Empire. He's mad at everybody. And so we'll see where that goes. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, what's he going to do against the fleet? He's not going to do much again. I mean, it seems like, I don't know. It seemed a little weird to me, but it ends up working out. So Ezra finds Sabine. He convinces some of the Mandalorians to come help out. They can't spare everybody because they do kind of allude to the fact that there's a whole other story going on. They're in the middle of a civil war, and it seems like that's going to be the subject of either a comic book or a book. Or some other short stories, because there's a whole nother war going on, so they can't spare many, but they spare a couple of ships and a couple of troopers and a couple of Mandalorians, and they go to help, and they look at the fleet and they're like, well, if we can take out the interdictor, then we'll be all right. And so that's kind of their plan. Meanwhile, the rest of our characters are trying to hold off the ground assault. We get some good moments with Zeb and Rex. Walkers are entering the base. We actually see the walkers pass through the shield, which is pretty cool. And they talk about it a little bit and kind of explain that even though the shield is strong, things can walk through it. And they make a joke about it, and it's kind of another throwback to The Empire Strikes Back, where maybe a casual fan will be like, well, why, if they had such a strong shield, how did they get through? And so it's kind of just outlining some things that some people may not know, and it's kind of cool to see that spelled out. But they enter the base. We get this great scene of Kanan finally arriving back and slicing down an AT-AT, and it's just amazing. So Kanan's pretty awesome for a blind man. He's got some moves. So they do end up surrounding the base. Thrawn ends up surrounding all of our leaders. It looks like he's got his death troopers with him, and they're pretty effective. They're not the dumb stormtroopers that we're used to. And just when it looks like there's no hope, the Bendu shows up as a storm of all things. This one is weird. I mean, it allows for them to do some very cool stuff, but it almost seems like it's just a plot device to allow our heroes to escape. So I was a little disappointed with that, because Thrawn's victory would have been perfect if not for two things here. One, the Bendu, you can't outplan the Force or even a force of nature, so you can't plan around nature being, surprise lightning storm. And then two, Constantine, you can't plan around somebody just randomly deciding they're not gonna follow orders anymore. So other than that, Thrawn did everything right here. And so the Bendu shows up, starts just lightning bolt everybody. He's it was like a LARP session almost. And so he's throwing lightning bolts at everybody. He's mad at them. He even calls out Kanan. He almost tries to kill Kanan and Hera as they're escaping in the Ghost. So that's interesting. And Thrawn decides basically he has all of his troopers and his death troopers target the storm and start shooting. They actually manage to hit the Bendu, and you get to some beautifully iconic scene of like a fallen angel kind of falling down from the sky. And really some of these shots are just breathtaking. Like, it's done so well. I give a lot of credit to the team who animates this. They did a great job. Because this was a beautiful episode. I may have not been thrilled about the Bendu being a storm. That was a little weird, but it was beautiful regardless. So basically, and you have a really cool scene at the end of the episode where the Bendu says to Thrawn, "I see your defeat, like many arms surrounding you in a cold embrace." And that's basically some foreshadowing for what's going to happen to Thrawn. Now, it brings up some amazing, possibilities of what is going to become of Thrawn. Many arms surrounding you in a cold embrace. Does that mean he's going to get attacked by an octopus? Right? I mean, I think that's a little too literal. Maybe Saw Gerrera will end up defeating Thrawn, and it's the Borgullet that reads his mind, because that had the tentacles and stuff, and so that could be And we know we are expecting to see more of Saw Gerrera eventually, so it could be that Saw Gerrera gets his hands on Thrawn and lets loose the Borgullet on Thrawn. That might be specifically what they're talking about there. But I prefer to think of it as, like in my other video where I predict that Thrawn survives and we'll see him in episode 8. I prefer it to be more of an abstract, like a betrayal and a cold embrace, kind of like Julius Caesar, where everybody betrayed him all at once. So many arms, he was stabbed multiple times. I kind of expect it to be something like that. But it could be a little bit more literal, like a Borgullet or an octopus or something like that. I think if it's going to be literal, I think it'll be a Borgullet. But so I'm calling it right here. If Thrawn dies in season 4 of Rebels, if he's even in season 4 of Rebels, I predict it'll be Saw Gerrera and a Borgullet. Calling it right here. But hopefully not. I don't want Thrawn to die so soon. I want him to live all the way up to episode 4. I want him to be in with the First Order, and I have a video explaining that, so check out my Thrawn's Fate Revealed video if you haven't already. But the rest of this episode, a few other things happen, some other surprises. Kallus is able to escape, and that was a big surprise because Thrawn goes down on the surface, and Price is now in charge of the fleet. And it just goes to show, even though she's a governor, she's high-ranking, she's stupid. She knows how good Kallus is, and she entrusts him to 2 stormtroopers to take him away. I mean, has she not seen the show? Of course Kallus escapes the stormtroopers, manages to get into an escape pod, and gets picked up by the rebels, and he survives. Now, this was a surprise to me. I thought if anybody was going to die, Kallus was the first one on the chopping block. And maybe the writers expected that, and they wanted to surprise us and allow Kallus to survive, because he makes it out. And that's, this almost seemed like a missed opportunity to me too. Not just to have him die, but Thrawn didn't really get to use him. In the Behind Imperial Eyes episode, they had Thrawn talking about how Kallus would be so much of a better tool now that they knew who he was. So that makes you think they're going to feed Kallus false information to set the rebels up, and that seemed like a very Thrawn type move, and they didn't do any of that. So I'm a little surprised. I wonder if the script wasn't rewritten a few times before they settled on this one, because Kallus literally did nothing to betray the rebels, and Thrawn didn't use Kallus's ability at all. I mean, he knew he entraps him, but he doesn't manipulate him in a way that I thought Thrawn would have. So in fact, he does just the opposite. He allows Kallus to warn the rebels, and so it seems like a missed opportunity to me. But I'm glad Kallus survived. I think, I was mostly because I was surprised by it. I thought he had, was at a good stopping point for his character, but maybe he'll go out like a champion. Who knows? So we'll see what happens with Kallus. I really don't know what the future holds for him. But the rebels are able to escape because of Ezra and Sabine. So Ezra and Sabine come in with the Mandalorians, and they basically launch an assault on the interdictor, and you get some really cool scenes of Ezra and Sabine and some other Mandalorians jumping out of this large ship onto in spacesuits and attacking the gravity wells of the interdictor in close range combat. They're actually in these magnetic boots walking on top of the interdictor and shooting at it, and Ezra slices it, and they disable it from the outside, and that's really impressive. So it was we saw a little bit of that in the trailer, but it ends up being a decent battle scene. So and when this is happening, the ground battle is happening at the same time, and then there's also TIE fighters versus some of the other Protectorate fighters, and so you have multiple different battles going on at the same time. And so I'm not covering them all in the exact order that they happened, because the Thrawn's fate bit with the Bendu was the very, very end, and then Thrawn gets so angry he shoots the Bendu, and that's one of the last scenes we have of Thrawn. The Bendu just disappears. I think I have my own theories about that. I think maybe it was just a physical manifestation, but the Bendu's more of the Force, and while that that creature might have died, the Bendu itself goes on. So because he laughs, you hear like a little spirit, a Force. It's almost creepy. Bendu's a little bit of a creep. We've seen the Bendu kind of seem like he was a nice guy, and now he's a little bit of like a jerk. So I guess that he is in the middle, because sometimes he's bipolar. The bipolar Bendu. Hashtag bipolar Bendu, right? Anyway, but so they escape. The rebel fleet, what's left of the rebel fleet escapes. Overall, this was a big victory for Thrawn, despite the 2 things that were completely out of his control. and he still dealt a huge blow to the rebels. Just got rid of one of their bases, basically cut stopped the attack on Lothal, so they're not going to be able to do that attack on Lothal. So he saved the Lothal shipyard, and effectively by proxy by stopping the attack, and cut a big part of the rebel fleet in half, basically, or maybe more than half. I haven't actually counted all the ships that were destroyed versus all the ships that escaped, but he got all the Nebula. He got like almost all the biggest ships. And this also serves to explain, he got virtually all of Dodonna's fleet. And that's, like many people expected, this explains why at the Battle of Yavin, while you primarily just have fighters, because almost all of the larger ships were destroyed. There were a few CR-90s and hammerheads that survived. Our carrier, the Quasar, is no more, because Sato used that thing like a karate chop. And that was gorgeous, man. So really, really good stuff. A lot of great scenes in here. One of my favorite scenes too was from the ground battle as they're trying to take off again when Ezra's attacking the interdictor and the rest of the fleet is leaving the planet. You get a scene of the AT-ATs or raise their guns and they're trying to stop the ships from leaving, and they manage to take down a rebel transport, and it goes down in flames and explodes, and the horror on everybody's faces as they see it. You get a feel of hopelessness from this episode, but then at the very end you get a little bit of hope as well, and some mystery towards Thrawn. So great episode. A lot of things that happened that we expected, and a few things that were unexpected. I'm surprised. Primarily, the biggest shock for me is that the Bendu revealed Thrawn's, kind of soothsayed Thrawn's fate a little bit. And the other really big shock to me is that none of our heroes died. I mean, a lot of heroes died, like a lot of crew and a lot of captains of Nebulons and CR-90s and even Hammerheads and stuff died, but none of our principal characters died. It was really just Constantine was really the only character who had a name that didn't make it. So let me know what you think of this episode. What do you think? Primarily, what I want to hear back from you guys is, what do you think the prophecy for Thrawn means? What is the Bendu's prophecy? I'm probably going to talk more about this in the future, because I really need some time to reflect and come up with some crazy ideas and some really good ideas, and kind of blend them all together and see what floats to the top. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Check me out on Crabbok.com, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment and let me know what you think about the Bendu prophecy for Thrawn. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.